food is information, not morality. That is one of the deep insights that I have for you as someone who helps people to feel better and to go on a journey of health. Of course, the question about diet and about food is inevitable. Myself, I have gone through a evolution of being a carnivore to being a vegetarian to being a vegan and now being more or less vegetarian, pescatarian when I travel and vegan whenever I can. So the point here is that you have to find out what is good for you and what works for you. I used to be very strict in saying only vegan, only this, only that. I will say during the time where I had no other avenues, no other ways to help myself other than diet, I, for myself personally, found that the vegan diet was the one that gave me the lowest levels of inflammation, the lowest levels of pain, and you have to find that out for yourself. But again, the point that I'm trying to make is that there are signals embedded in your food, and those are more important than the morality, at least if we talk about health only. But if you think about it, if everything carries energy, then it is very natural to believe and to understand that your food carries energy as well. So it matters in which environment the food was grown or raised. It matters what kind of pesticides or nutrients were administered to your food, whether we're talking about plants or animals. It matters what type of mindset the people that were handling your food were in when they were, for instance, butchering your animals or harvesting the crop. All of these elements are truly important. They are not to be underestimated. And that is why when you talk about veganism and organic food and consciously raised crops and animals, that is why that is very important, because inevitably there will be energy encoded in the way the food was handled and in the way the food had its journey. So it's not always about the morality, it is often a lot more about the signal that is linked to the morality that you choose to support the way your food is produced, the way your food is handled, and the way your food is distributed. Your nervous system actually eats before you eat your food. That is why it is very important to also consider the circumstances, the mindset, the situation you are in when you are eating. Are you just mindlessly gorging down food while being stressed, while being focused on something else, while walking? Or are you tying your nutrition, are you tying the ritual of eating food to a specific process that is healthy and balanced for you? It is certainly not without reason that in many traditions, eating healthy foods are tied to specific rituals that are typically linked and set up in a way where you are being put into a state of gratitude, a state of mindfulness, and a state of awareness. I don't know if you've ever been in a terrible rush and you just found some leftovers in the fridge and you quickly ate it and then you ran to catch the cab and catch the flight or whatever, and then you felt completely messed up in your system, even though that very same food was totally okay for you to consume the day before. Well, it makes sense. I think you get the picture. Before you eat, you have to be in the right mindset as well. And of course, it's very important to understand that we all can have an exceptional day where we're in a rush. But if we get into the habit of continuously eating in a situation that is not healthy for us, guess what eating does for us? It makes us sick, which of course brings me to raise a topic that a lot of people are familiar with, and that is the need to eat in front of the TV. It's actually a very soothing experience for a lot of us, but not necessarily always the best experience because we are not consciously eating and we are quite literally ingesting the energy that we are watching on the TV. So think about that when you have your next meal. Let's talk about inflammation. Inflammation is often a communication error, meaning your body is not actually in a very healthy state and it uses the reaction to the food as a sort of rebellion to tell you, I'm not okay, and I'm just going to send you signals to catch your attention. It's like a child that needs a certain attention, a certain thing in their life, very often just love and attention and time spent with them. And it doesn't get that. So what it starts doing is it starts being a bully, it starts being problematic all the time. And it's the same with your stomach. So if you have a lot of foods that create inflammation in your belly, you might want to think about is maybe not the food that you are intolerant to, it is your system, that is your nervous system flight mode, which means it just rejects whatever you give it. Probably you are familiar with the generational food intolerances. Gluten is a big one, right? And gluten intolerance was not really a thing 20, 30 years ago. Nobody spoke of gluten intolerance. And now all of a sudden we have armies of people who are gluten intolerant. Why is that? Now, of course, it also has to do with how we eat a lot more processed foods and how especially our flours and our carbs are processed. But we have to ask ourselves also, is the problem maybe related to the stress and to the unhappiness and to the imbalance that our nervous system experiences? I have plenty of examples where after a neurological reset of the nerves that are connected to the stomach, we see people all of a sudden be able to eat gluten again, to consume dairy again. In moderation, of course, everything. But yeah, I think about that and know that you can change your intolerance towards your foods. Now, there's an important part of this conversation. I don't want you to walk around and say, Shankar said any intolerance can be taken away. That is not the case. There's two types of intolerances that your body shows you. One that is genetic and that is a very strong no for you and your biological makeup. If you are, for instance, if you have a strong allergy to peanuts, you should not eat peanut, right? But there's a second type of intolerance, and that is the one that is produced by all the stress and produced by trauma that you expose yourself to in your lifestyle. For example, let's say you are in a very uncomfortable situation, maybe at work, and each time you meet your boss or you meet your supervisor, there's a very specific food that is around and you eat it. Now you create this stressful experience connected to the food. And that is very important to understand. And now, if we extrapolate that understanding to all kinds of stressors that we find ourselves in our busy Western lifestyles, then you know exactly what the second type of intolerance is. So, again, we have genetic intolerance, is very important. Those are the strong no's. And then we have the trauma related intolerances. And those are the ones that are actually quite easy to work on if you choose to change certain elements of your life. Clean eating starts with fewer inputs, not more rules. This is a big one. And it actually boils down to a very simple behavior pattern, and that is eat only foods that you understand. So, what do I mean by that? If you look at the ingredients of a food item, and more than half of those ingredients, you don't know what that means, it probably means you should stay away from the food. Unless, of course, you are a chemist, then, this rule doesn't apply to you. No, but in all seriousness, most food contain a lot of ingredients that are absolutely unnecessary and that have been placed into those foods because of lobbying. What is lobbying? Lobbying is when big industries go to the politicians and get them to agree to certain rules that are beneficial only to them. For example, a big industry is the dairy industry and the sugar industry. The dairy industry and the sugar industry, they are lobbying, of course, for their own good. They want their members to be in a good standing. So they fight for mass distribution of sugar and of dairy in all aspects of nutrition, and that just simply leads to there being rules where very often there is forced integration of sugar, forced integration of dairy into foods that don't require that element. Let me give you an example. The dairy industry is a big one, by example, by the way. So if you look at your favorite brand of potato chips, chances are that it contains dairy. Now let me ask you, why on earth do your potato chips need dairy? They don't. They can have it, and it might give a certain taste that you get used to, but they really don't need to have it. They just have it because the dairy industry is lobbying hard for the surplus, the excessive production of dairy to be included and integrated into as many industries as possible. Long story short, keep your foods as lean as possible. Eat only what you understand and question whether you need this in your food or not. A very good app, by the way, to help you navigate that is called Yucca. It's spelled Yuka. It's a very neat app. You can use it in the store and scan your food items, and then it shows you which ingredients are necessary or outright dangerous. If you pay a little subscription fee, or it might even be a one-time fee, you even get shown a list of healthier alternatives for your needs. So yeah, pay attention to that and you'll start feeling a lot better. The next one might be a little bit surprising to you, but it is an important rule, and that is your body craves predictability more than variety. This might be a hard one for you to understand, but trust me, it is absolutely super powerful for you to find out which foods are good for me and then stick with those foods. Don't try every day to startle your nervous system and give it that new spice, give it that new sweetness, give it that new greasy food that you are craving. Get into the habit of eating healthy foods. And if this idea is a little wrong, it sounds a little weird to you, let me ask you the following question. Are you in the habit of consuming the foods regularly that are not good for you, not beneficial for you? Are you in the habit of having your daily sweet latte with excessive calories and sweet syrups? And by the way, don't get me wrong, I'm not asking you to stop having your daily latte because I like my daily latte as well. I'm asking you, do you have consistency in ingesting or imbibing that food that you know for sure is not good for you? We all have those foods, but you consume it in a very predictable way. If the answer to that is yes, then let me ask you, why do you not have the same predictability around the healthier foods, the foods that are good for you? Let me give you an example. There is a certain meatless brand that I like very much. And, this is not about meat or non meat, by the way. I have just found out that for myself, it is my body reacts better to eating a vegan sausage than a real sausage. Okay. That might be different for you, but for me, that is true. So, whenever I buy that non vegan sausage, I tell myself, oh, this is an exception. I'll do this once a week or once every other week. But the question that I should ask myself too is why? Why do I only let myself buy that once a week? Why don't I say if I would normally eat sausage twice or three times a week, and a lot of meat eaters do eat sausage twice or three times a week, why do I not let myself have the consistency of having the healthy version of that sausage, in my case, the vegan sausage, 2 to 3 times a week? We really have to ask ourselves, why do we make exceptions with the good stuff? And why do we let the bad stuff be the daily routine? Very often, it is an economic reason. But very often, the economics is also just an excuse. I will tell you that. Just analyze it. This is another conversation, another part of the conversation, of course. But no, I will admit that if you live in a certain area and you have very little income, it might be a little harder to eat the foods that are good for you. But chances are that you are not in that situation because you've had the time to watch this video for several minutes already. And that just means to me that you probably belong into a class of people that can afford to buy the foods that are good for you. I'm out of the mall, as you can see, and I have time to finish up the video and tell you about the most important aspect of foods. Are you ready for it? This is very powerful. So here it goes. Andrea and I, we have actually devised a method to let your body, your brain, tell you whether a food is good for you. So you don't have to rely on someone else's dogma. You don't have to adhere to being a vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, carnivore, what have you, paleo, all of those things. You can test each food individually and let your neurology tell you whether food is good for you or not. The way we do this is through a combination of muscle testing, which comes out of the world of kinesiology, and also understanding neurology and how foods impact your body's behavior. You are in luck because we do teach this in a little bit more detail in our courses, but a good starting point for you, if this is of interest to you, would be to attend one of our many free webinars in which we teach this and much more. Essentially, we teach an entire health protocol that helps you bring yourself on a much better trajectory, where food only plays one element, one role in the entire approach. So, the next thing you need to do is go to the link that is in the description, sign up for the next webinar, and you'll meet either me or Andrea to learn a lot more.